Grr. He was ripped apart. Hello, here's Movie Fanatic Nate coming at you to review another Stephen King book or whatever, story turned into movie. I just reviewed Christine, so now I'm reviewing Silver Bullet. This one, I don't think Stephen King wrote the screenplay for Christine, but this one Stephen King actually wrote the screenplay for. Silver Bullet from I think 1985, starring the supposedly or by official news sources the now deceased Corey Haim. And this is a movie that I kind of grew up with back when I was 11 and 12, just getting into horror movies. I actually taped this movie off of TV, just not cable, just normal broadcast TV. And this is back in the days where I don't know if they still do it or whatever, but I don't watch TV now, but it's just like viewer discretion is advised. Like every time they'd come back from commercial, they'd say that. So basically, I think I'm not too sure they even cut any of the visuals in the TV presentation of this movie. Obviously if there was any language, they cut that out, but I'm not too sure they actually, maybe, they probably wouldn't have shown that thing where the guy gets killed in the fog and that dummy head with the half of the face missing comes back up. Stuff like that I think was probably not in the broadcast version, but I think the majority of the stuff that took place in this movie was. And the reason I'm doing this review, should any of you be wondering, is because just like Christine, I recently revisited this movie. I've got Christine and Silver Bullet on DVD, and so I just recently revisited this movie. It's funny because I always think of this as a 4th of July kind of movie because the character ends up with fireworks and setting them off, but I don't think it's a 4th of July movie. I think that because Gary Busey says, you're going to have 4th of July, but in September, so I think it's September when he's actually lighting off the fireworks. I always, like I say, regard this as a 4th of July movie, but I think it takes place over the span. I want to say it starts in the spring and then it ends like in the fall, so I don't really like movies that like take place over a span of time, but they don't tell you like, okay, now it's June or now it's whatever. It seems like this movie starts to do that and then it does, I don't know, whatever, but Silver Bullet. This is, as I said, this is a movie I grew up with, and there's a lot of kind of, maybe not a lot, but there was a handful of werewolf movies at this particular time. American Werewolf in London, and The Howling, and this might have been one of the kind of last ones of the 80s. I don't know if anything really came after this in the 80s besides like Howling sequels, but I don't know. This particular version of a werewolf, I think, is kind of maybe one of the least effective out of some of the 80s werewolf movies. Just like, I don't know, like American Werewolf in London, I think, is one of the most badass kind of werewolves designs. Whereas this is just like, I don't know, just standing all upright and just like Wolfman walking around all upright, or I don't know, I'm having revisited this, I was reminded that I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. I don't really like how, kind of like with the TV show The Wonder Years, this movie is like narrated by an older version of Corey Haim's sister, basically an adult woman version, or Stand By Me. At the same time, this movie came out, Stand By Me was narrated by an older version of one of the younger characters in this movie. I don't really like that. I don't know, I just don't. This movie was like, came out in 85 and takes place in 76, and again, I don't know if that's when the book came out, or actually this movie's based on, I don't know if it was a book or a short story or whatever, but I kind of like the title of the story, which was, I think, Cycle of the Werewolf or something like that, which is kind of a cool title. At the end of the day, I'm not the hugest fan of this movie. Jay Chataway does some kind of interesting, Jay Chataway signature kind of music for this movie, and the thing I like the best about this movie, I think I can spoil it. I think it's an old enough movie where I can spoil it. If you haven't seen this movie and don't want to be spoiled, you better stop watching this review right now. Okay, you were warned. I'm going to spoil one of the big spoilers, probably the biggest spoiler of this movie, Silver Bullet. The thing I probably like most about this movie is the reveal of who the actual werewolf is, and actually the scene where she's going around collecting cans and bottles and looking at everyone's eyes after her brother shot a rocket into a werewolf's eye, I thought was interesting. And then she comes back to return the cans to whatever the father, whatever the hell his name is, the guy who ended up going on to be in what's it called? People Under the Stairs. I don't know what his actor name is or the character in this movie, so we'll just call him Werewolf Preacher Guy. That was the best thing in my opinion about the movie. It's just like put the cans over there, and he's got a thing over his eye. He's like stabbing the ground as he's like doing gardening or whatever. So I mean, the scenes, like, I don't know. I guess I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe the movie for me isn't incredibly crazy effective until until the reveal of who the werewolf is. Like after that, it's like gets more interesting. Like ooh, for me. But maybe until then, it's just kind of like I don't know, just generic, like just werewolf coming out and killing people for no reason. One of the things that's funny is that one character who's like pregnant, who was going to kill herself, and then the werewolf comes in and she's like, right when she's about to kill herself, and all of a sudden she's being attacked and she's trying to defend herself. Like, what? That kind of makes no sense to me. Maybe it's just a natural instinct. Like, if you're going to kill yourself, if you're actually literally just moments away from killing yourself and a werewolf comes in the house, wouldn't you just be like, take me, but no, she's all like, screaming and trying to, defend herself and get rid of the werewolf and stuff. I thought that was funny. But what I'm getting at is there were like, well, how many characters? Like, I think it was kind of the drunk, kind of white trash guy, drunk father of that cute girl, pretty little girl that was kind of like flirty all with Corey Haim's character. And then his friend, who was a real jerk, who, basically made his sister fall in the mud and stuff. I can't remember what the hell that young boy's name was, but basically he kills those two people, and then he kills the pregnant woman who was going to kill herself. And later on, he explains to Corey Haim's character, like, oh, she was, of course this werewolf is religious because this werewolf is a pastor or whatever the hell these people are called. It's just like, so yeah, so he's just like basically telling Corey Haim's character, well, she was going to kill herself, which was the worst sin ever. I was just going to, save her soul or whatever. And he just conveniently doesn't explain why he killed the kid or the dad of, Corey Haim's little crush. So that was just kind of like, to me, like inconsistent. Like, if you're going to explain one, why don't you explain the other ones that happened in the movie too? And also the decapitation of the drunk guy in the railroad at the very beginning of the movie, which was kind of a cool scene. I kind of liked that. And just whacking his head off. They portrayed the kind of the werewolf as really kind of something that was really, just deadly and stuff like that. This guy who did the makeup effects for like King Kong in the '76 King Kong movie, I want to say it's like Carlo Robaldi or something like that, Italian guy, did the kind of the werewolf effects in this movie, which, again, I don't know, I would say are not as good as like stuff like transformation effects of maybe the Howling or what's that other one? American Werewolf in London. But I don't know if they really do so much of a full-on transformation so much as they do in those movies in this, which is kind of cool because by this time, in those two movies that have already come out, we've seen it before. So I don't really, we kind of don't really come into, usually when there's a werewolf scene, he's already a werewolf and he's already on the prowl. So the thing they do in this movie is kind of a reversal. After they kill the werewolf, they kind of do a more or less full-on him going from werewolf to naked, pastor in the corner of the living room effect. Which is actually kind of creepy in the way he's just so pale white and just and then the kind of the scene that Scream would allude to later on, just over 10 years later, is kind of the cheap scare where he's like, just comes alive or whatever, only to fall back into the corner and die. Before I end this review, Gary Busey's, in my opinion, is one of the best things about this movie. I think his screen presence is absolutely phenomenal in this movie, and I think you can see a lot of scenes in this movie where they were maybe some bits and pieces of some of the scenes he was in look very much unscripted and kind of like stuff that they just rolled with at the time in any particular take or whatever. And I think his yeah, he just really, having revisited it recently, he really stood out to me as being a really great on-screen presence. So the fact that the Corey Haim character is kind of is a cripple to me, I don't know. It kind of got draining, to be honest, to just I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it kind of plays into the, you know, him having a wheelchair and called a silver bullet. Not that that really matters. I I don't know how I feel about the, you know, him being in a wheelchair aspect. I guess, you know, to make movies with characters like this for people who are actually in wheelchairs maybe makes them feel better or included or something like that. I don't know. It kind of just draining towards the beginning of the movie for me, how you know, it's just like always making the reluctant sister take care of him and do this and that, and make some of the things like him crawling in and out of the window or up onto that tree limb seem like very impossible. Like, we conveniently don't see him, we always see him going down from things, you know, we never see him climb up onto the tree or up into his bedroom window and stuff like that. So I'm not too sure, you know, like him being in a wheelchair thing, you know, I don't know, added to the movie. Maybe it detracted for me. I don't know. What do you think about that detail? Anyway, Silver Bullet, I'd say 2 stars out of 4 stars. For me, like some of the 80s werewolf movies, it's, in my opinion, one of the lesser ones, but it still does have that nostalgia aspect because I saw it probably when I was 12 and was one of the first kind of horror movies that I saw, even though it was taped off TV. Like I say, I want to say they show the majority of everything. And one of the other standout scenes in closing was just the thing at the church where it's the pastor's dream or whatever. It's like everyone turns into a wolf. That was also one of the best parts. That might have been the best scene, my favorite scene in the movie. I like scenes like that where it's just like starts off like normal and then it slowly progresses. It's just like, what's going on? What the fuck? And it's just like really, happening in a lot of ways. That would have been cool if it did happen and it wasn't a dream. Like the whole city was the wolves and, you know, the priest was the only non-wolf. I think almost a disappointment when he wakes up from that dream, to be honest. I mean, I knew, of course, having, you know, revisiting it, he was going to wake up, but also I was just so cool that they were all turning into wolves. It's like, that would have been cool maybe if that was what was going on, all these wolves pretending like at the bar and stuff, like, oh, we got to find this killer, when in fact, you know, they're all the killers themselves. Would have been kind of cool. But that's my review of Silver Bullet. I'm not too sure if, I don't know if it's on Blu-ray or not that I get it, but yeah, feel free to let me know what you think of Silver Bullet. One of the reasons I explained why in my Christine review, I mean, you know, Stephen King actually penned the screenplay for this, and it's just, I don't know, with the exception of maybe that dream sequence with everyone turning into a wolf and some Gary Busey lines. Of course, those could be him ad-libbing. I don't generally regard this movie as being anything of any real amazing quality or anything like that. And one of the things that I thought was really weird towards the end of the movie, getting back to the older adult version of his sister narrating the movie, it's just like, oh, I just remember she said some kind of line at the end of the movie, and then she's like, good, talking to like her brother, and then she's like, good night, like she's telling her brother good night. I just was like, what? It's just like, what? It's just weird to me. But anyway, I think that's all I have to say about Silver Bullet. Feel free to let me know what you think of this movie in the comments. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Have you not seen it? Have you seen it? Whatever. Thank you very much for watching. As always, we'll catch you next time.